It's time for a serious dive. Do filler arcs and long-term hiatus damage the legacy of a series? Is live action ever good? My name is Grant Sounds, and today we'll be diving into some risky, controversial topics. Today with my hosts, Jules, Johnny, Fikes, and Shelby. How you guys doing today?
What up, though?
Feeling good.
Couldn't be better.
I'm feeling great.
Dope. Delays and gaps, how do they affect the overall belief of a series? How do they affect overall criticism of a series?
Ultimately, I feel like season delays and gaps don't greatly affect the overall viewership of an anime. I think that currently there are so many shows coming out that a lot of people are jumping on the anime bandwagon. And so I feel like there are shows like Attack on Titan that took a gap, or even shows that don't have such a bigger fan base, but their fan base is a core group of people, like Classroom of the Elite took, I think, about 5 years to come back. And even Devil is a Part-Timer took 9 years to come back. I feel like ultimately the most that people are going to do is really just lament about how they have to wait so long. But I think that they'll still come back around and carry with the numbers.
I'm feeling like I agree with like a lot of that, but what I think is what differentiates a lot of these different animes from one another is the fact that some people have the platform to take a break and some don't. And I think the difference between that is those who have had an insane amount of hype behind them and actually have like lived up to that hype, like the AOTs, and people who are like of a smaller niche category, like the ones that are looking at like the Devil is a Part-Timer, right? And that's something that you can get into at any point in time. But we're talking about the people who you just can't jump into any anime immediately and just be like, oh, I don't need to know what happened before. It's not happening. Like, it's just not happening. You need there are not too many people who can carry the same weight.
But I just don't think that's true, because like we said, we were only even talking about Devil as a Part-Timer because it had a loyal fan base that was willing to wait around the 8-9 years for it to come back. And plus, as an avid Blue Exorcist stan myself, I think that even though we had to wait a significant period of time, at least I think over 6 years, even if this hype isn't as big as the animes that come back after a long time like Bleach, I don't think that it takes away anything from the anime itself. I just think that then fans get a lot more hype because now not only does it give them that like, oh yes, my show's coming back, but also it gives us hope for the other shows that we want to come back. Shout out Noragami, but we like hope.
And with that idea, how do you guys also feel about the marketing in filler arcs?
There we go. Now we talking. Somebody finally said that shit. Check me out. Look,
Johnny,
listen.
go ahead.
Just hear me out for 2 seconds. You look at AOT's marketing, they took like 3-4 years. They still came back and still crushed the game. They take another amount of time where they be like, oh, we're going to give y'all this last part in a quote-unquote movie form. One episode that comes out literally this week. Or when time y'all see this, it'll be a little bit different. But it comes out like right now. And it's like, it's only 1 hour. It's 1 hour and we breaking this up even more. But also to that point with the marketing, right? It's like, look at the marketing team they had. If you look at back at AOT's marketing stuff, Hot Topic, it was everywhere. T-shirts, it was everywhere. It's all over social media. It's not going nowhere. Like, even the mangaka Isayama came over here to Anime NYC. The marketing is going to be there. So I think the marketing plays a big portion, but even to the filler portion of it, like AOT ain't got no filler, it's just going to make you wait forever.
That's the important thing to talk about, is that not everybody is AOT. And that's the kind of like
Facts.
So this is the difference for me, right? AOT comes back after several years, after 2013, 2014, comes back and puts his foot in the pudding, right? You know, grandmama put up foot in the sugar, whatever.
That's a fact.
Does that, right? You're like, oh my God, AOT is back. 2020, 21, 22. Devil is a Part-Timer comes back. You're like, oh wow, Oh wow, that was
I
a
wouldn't
part-time.
go that far as to say all that.
That's the difference.
Nah,
that's
I think you
really,
just
no,
that's subjective. That's
And it's
subjective.
just what it is.
Nah,
And it's
that's
okay.
Get on 'em.
It's okay.
Get
It's
on 'em.
okay
That's
to-
subjective.
It's okay to be like, I ate something on my plate before I ate the other thing. When you got oxtail and gravy and rice and peas on your plate, and you touch
Okay.
that before you touch the asparagus, that's okay. But it's nice to
But
have
the
everything on your
question
plate.
is-
Okay,
It's
but that's
nice to have
to
that.
Big
you.
ups.
It's really nice that you love AOT and put it up on that high pedestal,
I
but
like
not everything.
Devil's a part-timer. Watched it when it first came out too.
I mean, can I
Why
throw in
not?
Overlord since we here? Because Overlord took damn near 3 years before they came back. So, and Overlord was isekai.
In the
It's not
struggle
one of those
race.
big ones like AOT.
It seems like after a hiatus or after a good season, you never really know what a series might put out next. And sometimes when you might think it's a good OVA or maybe even just a nice little filler arc, you get a live action series. So that brings us to this important question, and I'm gonna ask you, Fikes, do we need live action series?
Do we need live action series? So I think in general, it's kind of a double question, right? I think there are some ways that we do need live action because it gives a chance to adapt the source material that we know and love into something that's really more than just the anime quality. But sometimes live action doesn't always hit. But I think part of that important question is really, what are we turning into live action? Because lots of the time when we try to turn something that has a lot of shonen aspects or that has a lot of action or powers, magic, something that is a little bit more than the average human does, it makes it a little bit more difficult to translate when it'd probably be better to focus on things like the shoujo, the slice of life live actions, because those usually have a lot better reactions than anything
As
else.
always.
Right.
Yeah, I heard some e's and uhs and ers that I'm not particularly sure I like.
You spoke to Dragon Ball. You spoke to Dragon
Here we
Ball
go.
real quick, but at the same time, that's why I'm like, hey, yo, One Piece right here. And I'm also excited, but nervous like crazy, because I'm like, how are we really gonna do this effect on Luffy's arms? You know what I'm saying? I get Zoro, right? Because Zoro plays into the realism factor. Like, we look at stuff of Rurouni Kenshin, right? Rurouni Kenshin has a great live adaptation because it's super simple.
It's people
There's
with
no
swords.
physical powers. You know, it's just swords. That's all it is, right? But when it comes down to something like stretching somebody's arms or consistently having somebody's foot be on fire, shout out to Shanji, or, you know, a long way down the road, Chopper being a pet / doctor, like, it's special effects don't really play a part into this. So do we need live action? I think the need is more so of, do we want it for certain shows versus those that we don't really need it for? That's my question.
I agree with what
go
you're
ahead.
saying. Going back to Ficker's point, I think we really need to evaluate which shows we're choosing to become live actions and which ones we could really leave alone. The question that, you know, is the big elephant in the room is, do we really need to adapt this show into a live action anime just because there's a big fan base here? We have to see, where is the fan base? Is the fan base over here in the West, in the Americas, or is it really back in Japan or not?
Right,
We also
right.
see things like the shoujo point, K-drama is doing really, really well over here. So I feel like you really can think about which shows
Right.
to, you know, adapt and which ones you can
Shout
really
out.
leave alone. Because honestly,
Facts.
I would love to see the impossible feats done well in anime. I am a One Piece fan. I really want to see how they're going to do Luffy's arms, but I'm also scared because I don't want it to, you know, flop. And it's something that is near and dear to my heart. So I think it's a double-edged sword.
That actually begs a question, Jules, if you want to answer both of these. It's just, I really would love to know if there is any sort of connection between someone wanting one-to-one content in manga to anime as opposed to one-to-one content from anime to live action series.
That's actually a perfect. I love to talk about that. The one-to-one from manuscript to live action, and the one-to-one between manuscript and anime is, I think it's pretty different, because I don't think that unfortunately, I don't think the live action goes one-to-one with manga. I think it goes one-to-one with the anime adaptation of the manga. So there's a disconnect there. The thing with the live action is that it's deriving off of the people's expectations of what they saw when they watched something, and the people's expectations of the anime is based off of what they've already read or what people who already read it have told them. I have to say that as much as I am excited for the One Piece live adaptation, that is strictly because I love One Piece. This is a love that has overcome the disappointment of live adaptations. I love telling the story of me.
Pre-assumed
right, exactly.
Of disappointment.
My love conquers all when it comes to the things I want to watch. And I'm saying this as somebody whose father took them and their little brother and paid $24 plus tax to go watch Dragon Ball Evolution in theaters. Somebody who was telling their dad every day, no, don't delete Dragon Ball Z off the TiVo because you gotta watch it. It's a good show. Trust me. It's just as good as The Sopranos and Entourage and whatever else is on HBO with your big people with shows. And I told them this, right? And I'm telling them this, and then we got in the theater and we watched a white man play a Japanese dude who fell from an alien planet fight a green dude who's a white dude in makeup, and we said
we ain't gotta get into all the details.
Oh my god, he was in high school. Tell me in what world is Goku in high school? You tell me in what world, and I'll show you a liar.
But that's what I mean.
And that's the disappointment. And
that's what I mean. Not everything needs the live action. The Last Airbender, anyone?
Right, but not everything is for live action. Not everything is for live action. But if we can't even take the stars, the best of us, those who put the pioneers of our genre, if we can't even put those and make a good film for them, where is the hope for the other ones?
You're right. Like, it's for the appropriate storyline, right? Like, how do we translate in live action storylines some of these large fights, these big kind of throw round tosses and big power moves and all these things that we love about the story itself, when those things aren't really super translatable and maybe not even really the focus of the thing they're talking about. And of course, depending on who makes it and how faithful they are to the adaptation of it, that one-to-one aspect, maybe we should just be focusing on stuff that's easier to make live action instead of things that, wouldn't it be so cool if we tried this? That's why I was saying shoujo and slice of life is probably way better as a live action adaptation than something that has a lot extra dependent on it.
I did love watching ITAEWON class, and I didn't know that was an adaptation. I just liked the drama itself. It was just fun to watch. I didn't know it was like a manhwa. Like, it was just fun to watch. I had a good time. Yeah, it was a great time. But we talked about this earlier before. I guess as much as I am disappointed, but still have hope for things like One Piece, I do wonder if the solution is the shaking of hands between certain corporations, like Netflix, and the person actually sat there and wrote the manuscript that millions of people around the world have loved. Like, is it just giving and taking and saying, maybe we're gonna make millions of dollars anyway, is it okay if we make 5 million less and make a good story and still taking that other 25 mil?
Usually fans are just very, 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 very wary of a development or of a development studio that might not be too connected to the content if they weren't working on the specific IP, handling something that's so close to their hearts. So that's why Dragon Ball Z, I feel like, just touched so deep to people's souls, because Dragon Ball Z is something that I feel like connects to a lot of our inner childs. So for it not to be given that due diligence, it really kind of hit a sore spot. And that honestly is a great place to transition to our third and final question, which, shout out to you, Jules. You had a large hand into, so I'm actually going to read straight off of Twitter, word for word, what you had to say. Once we move past the idea that animation quality of an anime isn't the defining factor of the show's quality, then we can have an honest conversation about what we are watching and how good it actually is. Jules, are you here to defend that take?
I don't need to defend it. I don't need to defend it. It is what it
for real?
It is what it is. I think
it's like that.
Let me start this by saying I am not an elitist. I am not an elitist.
Go ahead.
I'm not an elitist when it comes to manga. I'm not an elitist when it comes to anime. I'm not an elitist when it comes to adaptations, yada yada, etc. Have you. I'm not, right? But when you have an influx of people coming into a genre to tell you that everything that they've been consuming during the years of 2020 to 2022, when everybody was locked inside, is the greatest thing to have ever entered that genre, is quite literally insane. Animation quality is amazing. I'm happy that, you know, we don't have to watch Speed Racer sit there and be like, he's moving. I'm happy that we don't have to do that anymore. I'm very happy. But to sit there and tell me that is the end all be all of a genre that you've just gotten yourself into, or the end all be all of narration, writing, theme, or voice actors, so many things that make anime, that is insane. That is insane. I would prefer you just tell me you like what looks pretty, you like that it entices you, and you like that it's easily digestible, not just for you, but your friends that can also consume it. Just say that. But please don't sit here and tell me that, and I'm not going to name any names until somebody else name a name, that is the best thing to ever grace this planet.
I was just gonna ask you because you beating around the bush.
I ain't beating around no bush.
If you go talk like this, you gotta send a shot. You gotta send a shot.
Around the bush because the bush has a black sword, and we all know it. And y'all can run with that. How y'all wanna run with that? We know what the bush is. We know what the bush looks like, and we know what the bush's little sister looks like.
Not too much
so
on the game.
We can move forward with that.
I'm curious.
Drop what series y'all think he's talking about in the comments.
So now that we're talking about the big elephant in the room, Demon Slayer, I'll start off by saying that I actually agree with you so far. I agree with you that I think that animation quality is only one. Hey, wait a minute. I said so far about what he's talked about. Thank you.
It's so far.
Keywords here. So I agree with you that animation quality is only one factor out of many that, you know, is something to look at in an anime. I also agree with you that a lot of people who are newer to the fandom gravitate towards certain shows because of some of its like more digestible plot lines and because of the animation and art style in general.
Right.
I will say that if people, you know, expand their, you know, palette and their disbelief, that they'll be able to enjoy other shows that they didn't initially put on their radar because maybe the art style wasn't something that they initially liked. But before I get into my other points, I just want to ask you a question, Jules. How do you feel about Demon Slayer?
Let me say this, because I'm not here to throw any more dirt on anything. I want to be a lover, right? I remember I read all of Demon Slayer weekly as it was coming out, and when the last chapter dropped, I said, that was a good shonen. That's exactly what I said. I put my phone on my chest because I was reading the Shonen Jump app on my back on a Sunday morning, and I read that shit and I put it on my chest. When I was finished, I closed my phone. I said, that was a nice good old shonen, and that was it.
You got pat the phone twice. I definitely know what you are.
So when I read that and then I saw the animation, I said, oh, they really put their foot into this nice shonen, and then everybody's telling me this is the GOAT. I'm not gonna lie, they turned my nice little bowl of cereal a little sour, because I was like, okay, relax. Relax. That's how I feel about it. That's how I feel about the show. Relax. It's nice. It's good. It's nice. Relax. The story is fine. The animation is great. The story is fine.
Here's the thing, and I'm not saying what you're saying is wrong, because I'm not cool to call everything GOAT, right? That's just a cliche term that we just throw around too quick. But here's my thing about Kimetsu no Yaiba, aka Demon Slayer, right? Ufotable Studios knocked out Fate Stay Night, Unlimited Bayworks. Now they got Demon Slayer, and it's keep killing the charts. Great manga sales still to this day. And now has a movie coming out literally this week. When you see this, by the time y'all see this, it's probably already out and in theaters right now. We have to give some credit with at least Demon Slayer on doing one thing and one thing only, which is raising the bar for what animation could and should and will be for the future, right? But I'm not going to say like, oh, it's the GOAT of animes now because of how beautiful it looks. No, it's great and it's so popular because not just how good it looks, but the story is so simplistic to the point where it doesn't take a great exegesis and or a hypothesis to get to the actual end goal. It's pretty simple. Boy loses family, sister is alive still right now, technically, quote unquote. You have to now find said cure for a sister. Where the cure gonna come from? Said bad guy, aka Michael Jackson, aka Muzan, right? So you have to go ahead and figure this out. It's super simple to the point, but it's just like, yo, like to call something a GOAT just because of how beautiful it looks, yeah, that may be extreme. So I agree with you on that point. But the only thing I'm not cool with is just like, it's just like, come on, bro. Like you skipped around that thing, and I said, man, Demon Slayer really kicking ass right now. That's cool though. I got you though. I understand. I get it though. Don't call things GOATs quick, kids. Just give it time.
I agree with you. I can't wait to see the movie. I can't wait. I'm gonna say. I said last thing to say. I can't wait to see the movie. I can't wait to see the movie.
I enjoy Demon Slayer. I enjoy the plot. I enjoy watching it. I love the fight scenes. They're beautiful to watch, especially on a huge TV. So I do, still enjoy it. I still, however, think that animation style is just one of many things to consider when you're looking at an anime. I know shows like Mob Psycho 100, I initially wasn't sure that it would be something that I liked, but now, it's in my top 5. I am a Psycho Helmet fan club member, proudly. And it's
Let's
just,
go!
I felt like the animation style was beautiful after watching it and rewatching it many times. There are other shows like Reign Kings, KOTARO Lives Alone, where the art style may deter you at first, but the plot, the way the characters grow and change, the lore, I know Made in Abyss may look a little strange to some people at first, but the adventure and the world building that you can find in it, I think that if people were to dive deeper into anime, they will find what they like even more than animation.
And I really want to add on to that because I think something else that probably affects a lot of people's ideas of what the GOAT is, especially in the conversation of animation, is that as it gets better, animation expectations are going to get higher and higher. So the more great animation that gets put out, the more then we have an expectation that all anime is supposed to just look amazing, crisp, beautiful. But people will still have discussions about what kind of animation that they use. For instance, the discussion around CGI used in Chainsaw Man, and did that deter people from watching it or take away from the action that was happening in the storyline? And I think something else that probably kills it faster is a recency bias. I think more in general, people see something and they think it's most amazing thing they've ever seen. And they think that in general, I just watched it and I thought it was great. So clearly that's the greatest show of all time. When in reality, they're just dipping their toes in. They don't actually know anything about some of the classics that we have and still rewatch to this day. But then also as well, some of the other stuff that plays into the really important pieces of like why we like anime is sometimes for that rewatch value. Just because you like something newer doesn't automatically make it better. And that's why Shelby was right about that plot prevails. If the animation's great, cool, but it's not going to save you if the story sucks.
None of us here want to be like elitist about anything. We all want to be like, I think we are all people who want to say, I helped somebody get to this art form and now they love it. Like, I was ecstatic when my little brother told me that he started watching Attack on Titan, or he started watching My Hero or anything else like that, or he started watching Yu Yu Hakusho, and he was like, yeah, man, I saw you was watching it. I got your Crunchyroll, you know what I'm saying? I started watching it. Like, I mess with that heavily. I think that none of us want to be elitist or anything like that, but we also don't want to be like, on a certain bandwagon. And I think that healthy middle is kind of taking the new people who are watching the show, regardless if they call the newer shows, you know, the GOAT or not, is like helping guide them to other things that they might like, and trying to find that like healthy middle, and not being like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, because I don't want to come off that badly myself. So, you know, and so I hope we can all do that, you know, together. And if the way to do that is spending, you know, like a $50 million budget on a Demon Slayer movie, I'm all for it.
At the end of the day, I think all opinions in anime, manga, animation, live actions are all truthfully subjective. And it comes down to that cohesive balance of different pieces, whether it's budgeting, writing, animation, plot points, that make that recipe that is either a good meal or a bad meal to people. But ultimately it is subjective, although the community that we have is built on the comparisons. But if you try to give me ramen and I know it's Maruchan and you swear that it's Brooklyn's own Ajisen ramen, I'm gonna always look at you crazy. I think that is what it is, and we could settle there. And that's a wrap on another episode of Slice of Anime. This was a no-holds-barred battle of who can have the best subjective opinions on these niche ideas. I hope you guys enjoyed, and make sure you tap in for the next episodes. Go ahead and subscribe and hit that like button if you haven't already. I hope you guys have a great night, and shout out to you guys for sticking through the whole time. Have a good one.